All right, welcome. This is Group 1, Meeting 3. It's the 7th of October. Meeting for CIT 261. Today's agenda, we're going to have a lesson from me, Casey, a lesson from Chris, and a lesson from Catherine, and then some open forum discussions. So this week I'm going to teach about JSON parse and stringify. I did this one a couple weeks ago. So what is JSON? Well, it's JavaScript object notation. It's a syntax used to store and exchange data. JSON is exclusively text. It's important because all we can send between the browser and the server is text. So it's an efficient way of getting information to and from. You can convert JSON formatted text into objects in JavaScript. The syntax, it's really important to follow the syntax. So you're going to have a name value pair. Separate these name value pairs by commas. We hold objects in curly braces. It's for arrays. So here's an example. We have species, which is the key. And we have to use double quotes for the key. And the species, so it'll come up as species will be the type, and then canine will be what it is. In this example, we have GPA. Remember, the key needs to be double quotes. Not need to be double quotes. In this case, it doesn't need to be double quotes because it's a number. If it's a string, you're going to have double quotes. So let's get down to JSON parse. So parse is a JSON string into a JavaScript object. So if we receive this from the server, here in this case, I assign it to a variable myString. Notice how we have different keys and values. And JSON parse method to convert into an actual JavaScript object. I have variable my object here, and I run my magic JSON.parse method, and my string goes inside. So if I want to see my results, I can log to the console here. My object name, my element name, it'll have PD, which is the same up there. Species, breed, border collie. Questions on that?
Nope.
Now, the problem that I had with all this, it's pretty straightforward. The only problems I've run across is not having your string or your files in JSON format. So that's something to look for. Stringify does the opposite. So we'll convert a JavaScript object into a JSON string, whereas before we did a string to a JavaScript object. Same string here. We parse it, convert it into a JavaScript object. We can use the method stringify to convert that object back into a string. So here, if we log to the console, my new string, I'll get the string that we had. Name, PD, species, canine, breed, border collie. Questions on stringify? Two sides of the same coin here. So here's my demo that I was working with. So here we're just creating an object. We'll name him Billy Bob. And this temperament is sad. Get this string here. Okay. So we didn't quite make the object quite yet, or we did. There's a string of it as well. Now, if we want to parse that up into the object, we get. In this case, we use the XML HTTP request from the server. It's a little bit more complicated. We'll discuss that later on in a different lesson. And stringify our object that we created up here and turn it back into a string. All right, that's what I have. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Chris, I think you're next.
Yes, and I will be showing everybody how to manipulate CSS using some JavaScript.
Okay.
Which is not too difficult as long as you're familiar with JavaScript and CSS. So are you guys able to see my screen right now? All right. So what I've got here is I've got my HTML and my body, and just really simple. This is going to make some text change colors, and so I put a header in here, and I made it I change colors. And let me just make that proper by closing that. I didn't even notice that that wasn't even closed. All right. And then I made a button, which is going to be our JavaScript on here. And it is on click get document by, or get document got get element by ID, and it's calling the header one up here that I ID'd the header as. And it's going to go ahead and change the style. And inside that style, it's going to change the color. And I put that equal to green. And this is what it looks like on here. So because I haven't styled this before, it's just your standard black. And then when you click it, it changes it to green. And that is the magic of doing some simple manipulation using a little bit of JavaScript to your CSS. This works with pretty much anything. The more complex stuff that you have to do, which I think next couple of weeks I'll be talking about how to do it with animations and transitions. You're going to end up with a lot more JavaScript and a lot more CSS, but it basically works the same way. You just have some sort of script as a trigger. In this case, I used a button, and it makes everything change. Any questions?
No, that's good.
No.
All right.
Catherine, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right.
Okay.
You'll want to share your screen.
Screen share. 1 second. Let's talk about it. Okay, so can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So today I'll just be talking about objects, touching on functions and some of the different properties and things that objects have. And so I think functions have already been talked about in one of the other presentations a few weeks ago. So unless someone has any specific questions on syntax or something, I'll just kind of talk about the concept. So when I was a computer science tutor about a year or two ago, one of the most common questions that people would have is about why do I even need functions? And basically to summarize it up is it makes delegating tasks easier, and organizing your code is a lot easier as well. And so for an example, I like to think of like a ward where we have like a bishop, and he has a lot of tasks and responsibilities to do. So he will often delegate things to, say, the Relief Society or the Elders Quorum. And then say the bishop asks the Relief Society to check on a specific sister. The Relief Society can then delegate that task to their compassionate service leaders or to visiting teaching. So if these were functions, it would just be delegating tasks and organizing things to make things simpler. Does anyone have any questions about functions?
Nope, that's a good explanation, thanks.
Yeah, I actually like that one a lot.
Okay. Getting into JavaScript objects, you've probably seen them before in the different JavaScript libraries like math or dates, arrays, and even JSON. So that's just kind of a list of some of the many objects you might have seen already. But for my presentation, I'll just be kind of focusing on making custom objects. So an object has several different things. It can have properties, which are basically variables, methods, which are functions, and sometimes you'll even have a constructor where you can initialize the object's properties. And so properties, like I said, are pretty much just variables specific to your object, and they're often notated in the key value notation, with the key basically being the variable name, and the value is whatever you want to assign to the key. And you can access them using, there's several different methods. One of the most common is probably the dot operator, where you put your object name, a dot, and followed by the property key. You can also do it with brackets, which is again your object name, brackets, and then the stringified value of your key for that value you're trying to access. And then you can also pretty much do the same thing by assigning a variable with the stringified key, and then place it inside the bracket notation, and it will evaluate the same as your standard bracket notation. And then properties, you can actually add and delete them at any time in your code, as long as you have access to the object in scope. And an object can also have methods, which are basically localized functions. This is an syntax. It's going to be a little bit different than your standard function. And you'll have the key or the method name you want to give it, followed by a colon, function, parentheses, and then your curly braces, which is inside there where you'll put your function code. And then to access the function, it's the same as the dot operator on the properties. Just don't forget to add parentheses at the end to signify that it's a function, or it will probably return a stringified version of your code. So there's a lot of different ways to instantiate an object. On the left-hand side, you'll see you can assign your object directly to a variable with all the values initialized in that instance. And then on the right-hand side, you can actually just tell a variable that it's an object and add the properties or methods in as you go, kind of on the fly. You could also do kind of a combination of the two, where you can instantiate some of the properties like on the left-hand side, and then you can add some later, kind of like the right-hand side. So it's flexible in that way. And sometimes you might have multiple objects that have the exact same properties or methods. So an easy way to kind of avoid repeat code is to create a prototype. And I kind of like to think of prototypes as like a frame. And the syntax is pretty similar to that of writing a function, where you can pass in the variables that can be assigned to the object properties. And so in this example, the first instance is my father, and the person's name is John Doe. He's 50 and has blue eyes. And second one is, second instantiation is my mother. Her name's Sally Rowley. She's 48 and has green eyes. And so you can basically reuse that same function for two separate object instances. You'll also notice in this function that there's the word this in front of each of the properties inside of the prototype. And basically what the this keyword is used for is oftentimes you might see the same variable name used in the parameters as the property. Like for example, age, you'll see it in the parentheses up top. And then the object also has an age. And so this, and followed by a dot, is used to clarify that it is the property of the object, not just the variable from the parameters. Does anyone have any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is inheritance. And so sometimes we might want to create multiple objects and find that some of their properties and methods are almost identical. We don't want to have repeat code, but sometimes we want to be able to differentiate them as being different objects. So for an example, say I own a pet store and I have dog, cats, bird, fish, snakes, whatever kind of animals or pets you want. But they all have certain things in common, like say a name, age, breed. And so I want to have these be different objects, but I don't want to have repeat code. And so what I might do is create a pet object that has all those properties or methods inside of it. And then just for an example, say I want to have a bird object. And I will basically create it the same as I would any other object, pass in its variables and the parameters. And then I can call, use the pet object dot call and pass it this, and then the same properties. And basically all it's saying is, I am a bird, but I want to have the exact same properties and methods as pet. And sometimes we want to have a property or method be unique to my new object that I'm creating. And so I can still inherit all of the same properties as pets, but I can also create, like say I created a swim function for my fish that is unique to fish, and both are valid and can be used. And here I have my cat. It's just kind of another example where I've got both a new property as well as a new method. And then my last one is my dog, and it has a new property. But in this instance, I actually don't want to use the info method from pet. I can actually overwrite that function and have it be unique to dog by using the same method name info. And that would, so if I were to call dog.info, it would call the function in the dog property or in the dog object instead of the one in pet. Does anyone have any questions about that?
No, but I love the fact that you see example of number of legs.
All right, so I'm going to show you some of my code in action. Let's see. Can you guys see my web page?
No, just see your PowerPoint.
Okay, let me go back. I think I need to switch screens. Okay. All right, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so here's my pet example. And so, I guess I should refresh it. Oops. So basically, it's kind of like a game or something. And you can select a pet, and based on which one you select, will create an instance of the object. So say I want to have a cat. I'm going to name him Milo. And I want him to be 2 months old. And I want him to be an orange tabby cat. And then it will add him to my pets list. And then I can also say I can add a fish. I can give it a unique name. Let's call it Blue. And I'm going to have him be a week old. And he's a betta fish. And that'll add him to my pets list. So let me pull up my code here so you can kind of see what I did. You guys see my code?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the left-hand side, I have my HTML, and then on the right-hand side is where I have my JavaScript, where I have my different objects, kind of like I showed you in the presentation, PowerPoint. And then basically down below, I have a function called pickPet. So when the user selects a pet, it will call my pickPet function. And based on what they selected, it will prompt them for different questions and put their answers into the object and then print it out and put it onto the HTML page. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Nope.
Great.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys then.
Catherine. All right, can you guys see my screen?
No.
Nope.
Now I can.
There we go.
All right. All right, so we're at the end of the meeting. We'll meet next week, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And next week, we're going to have me, Catherine, and Ryan teaching. Okay. Any last minutes?
Nope.
Nope.
You guys have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.